Hello, everyone, and welcome once again to Primetime Crisis Live. I'm Captain Logan, and tonight we have a somewhat slimmer group for the Primetime Crisis Live. We have Steve Baxi.
Hello, everybody.
And we have the Curious Lo.
Hi, guys.
Lo is a little behind tonight, apparently. She's going to do her best, but she's having a little bit of connection issues and stuff like that. So that is all we've got tonight. I guess nobody wanted to talk about my retro pick today. I see how it is. It ain't 1978. It doesn't count. Tonight, so that is our Crisis panel for this evening. Tonight we're going to be chatting about my pick. This was an episode from Lois and Clark, the New Adventures of Superman, that I watched a lot when I was a kid and liked a lot when I was a kid. And we'll talk about it because it's kind of interesting and weird and bizarre and ultra super cheesy. It's like the last couple of weeks it's just been cheese fest here on Primetime Crisis Live. If you are watching live, welcome. Thanks for being here. You can go to the description if you have never been with us before and check out the blue chat. You can talk to us and talk to your fellow viewers. And if you watch this episode, feel free to put questions and comments, things you want us to talk about, or questions you have for us about the weirdness that is Tempus Fugitive. You can put things in the chat box, and we'll do our best to look at them. Also, a little bit later in the show, we're going to have the open forum, where in probably the latter half of the show, to be perfectly honest with you, I doubt we'll talk about this for more than half an hour. We will talk about whatever you'd like us to talk about in the realm of comics to screen and superhero stuff, and I don't know what this was, and all of that stuff. You guys will have to bear with me a little bit tonight. I'm a little bit out of it right now. I've been on my feet all day. I've been at a convention this weekend, and before we get started, you guys want to see some prints?
Sure.
Yeah.
Prints. I bought prints today. I went to this convention today. First weekend for the Kansas City Comic Con. There's a brand new convention out here in Kansas City. And you think, well, Kansas City Comic Con, surely that's your normal comic. No, it's not. Our regular giant comic convention is Planet Comic Con, and that's in March. And there's a brand new one that started this weekend, and I got to meet the original Red Ranger, Austin St. John.
Oh, cool.
Jason, my kid, is a huge fan of the original Power Rangers, and he's been getting this signed for the last 3 years, and we have a lot of the original cast now. So we've got Zach, the original Black Ranger, we've got Billy, the original Blue Ranger, and then we've got the first and second Red Rangers. We've got Steve Cardenas, who we met this year, up here, and then down at the bottom, we just got Austin St. John, and he's signed in gold. I guess he can differentiate. Which is cool, because, of course, he was also the Gold Ranger, and he had some cool Gold Ranger prints. I kind of wanted them, but we had this, so I didn't end up getting that. But anyway, so we got that done, and then I bought some prints. I went to this con, and I said, I'm not buying prints this weekend. I have, no wall space left. I bought 6. I bought 6 prints this weekend. As a lot of you know, I collect the Tick, and this guy had a bunch of really cool Tick prints. So I got this one.
That's awesome.
Which is kind of fun.
Nice.
And then I got Tick as a Green Lantern.
I can see that.
Tick as a Green Lantern.
If Daffy Duck can be a Green Lantern, so can the Tick.
Yeah. Well, he's a lot less generic, I think, sometimes than some of the Green Lanterns that get picked, especially, what's the name of the normal one? See, I can never remember his name because he's so generic.
Hal Jordan?
Thank you. And then, here's Patrick Warburton.
Nice.
Looking very stoic and dramatic. Then from the same guy, I got this print. It's got Deadpool and a whole bunch of people behind him.
Nice. Optimus and Batman.
yeah, these all go together, right? Groot right behind Optimus Prime.
Iron Man in the corner there.
Yeah, that's kind of fun.
Is that God? What's the Thundercats name? Is that
I don't
Leo?
know. But as soon as I showed that to my wife loves Thundercats for some reason.
Oh, that shit was awesome.
She goes, "Ho!" Which is exactly what my kid always says when he listens to the Bad album. And then, here's a Venom.
Oh, nice.
We collect a lot of Venom. That one's pretty cool. And finally, this may be the neatest of them. It's Spider-Man with the bag on his head. Well, there's an early issue of Spider-Man. I think it was Spider-Man before it was Fantastic Four, where Spider-Man tries to join the Fantastic Four, and he wears a Fantastic Four outfit, but he ends up wearing a paper bag on his head.
Naturally.
And I always thought that was hilarious. Anyway, welcome everybody. Thanks for being here on Primetime Crisis Live. We've already got quite a few people here with us, which is astounding given what we're talking about today. Here's the thing that I didn't figure anybody would care to listen to us talk about, but considering that folks showed for the 1978 Doctor Strange pilot, I thought there might be a few Lois and Clark fans out there, or people that just wanted to hear us talk about something kind of strange. So I'll talk about this just a little bit before we get going, as we always do. We let the sorry, you guys haven't got to say very much yet, but I've just had a lot of things I've had to say.
Just par for the course for me.
I'm sorry, Lo's gonna learn a lot.
She's taking over what I used to do.
Lo, this is Venom. And he's a Spider-Man.
Okay, I know who Venom is. Come on.
Lo, that's Superman, and that's Lois Lane.
Oh, okay, got it. Is Superman the same guy as Clark Kent? Because they kind of look alike, but one of them wears glasses.
Yes, what's really funny is that if you didn't know that, it would be okay, because you could watch this episode and be like, oh, they're the same person.
But you'll get it explained to you in a really condescending way, and you'll be called galactically stupid.
Right?
See,
it's okay, because love, and that's okay.
Yeah, right?
Time travel fixes everything.
See, what I...
Right?
Okay, look, we'll get there, okay? I wanted to make a Curious Lois Lane joke.
That would have been amazing!
The problem with the Curious Lois Lane joke is the whole point of this episode is that Lois Lane is not curious enough. So, Tempus Fugitive introduces an odd time traveler from the 22nd century who, this is, of course, Lois and Clark. This is a show that I grew up with, and it was basically taking Superman and turning it into a soap opera. When I was a kid, I didn't know. That was just like 60s Batman. You know, I didn't realize that was supposed to be campy. I didn't realize this was supposed to be a soap opera. And what this particular episode does is it takes this time traveler from the future, Tempus, because that's not the most obvious name in the world, but, you know, we had a clock king in Batman the Animated Series called Tempus Fugitive. We got away with that. So here, you've got this guy. He comes from the future, and it's a future. Sort of reminds me a little bit. Not that we can actually go there, but it reminds me a little bit of the future of the Legion of Superheroes, where Superman has like changed everything and created sort of this utopia. And not that it's as utopian there, but they sort of they almost worship Superman in the sense that they try to live up to his ideals, and they kind of pattern their whole society on that. And this guy just got really bored and was sick of that world because there's no challenge, there's nothing to do, and it's kind of pointless. And so his ideal world is the 90s, which I think is hilarious. And he ends up going back in time with a very naive H.G. Wells, who, ripping off the film time after time, I think that was that film, and this show acts like it's so clever and creative for giving H.G. Wells a time machine. I'm like, no, that was done like 10 years before this, and time after time. With the guy who played the bad guy in Star Trek Generations, he's in that. Anyway, so this guy comes back in time, and the whole idea is he's going to try to kill Superman as a baby, and H.G. Wells thinks that he's this totally okay benevolent guy because hey, he's from the 22nd century and everybody's benevolent there, and Superman has to build a second time machine and go with Lois, pretending to still be Clark Kent, and go back in time, and wackiness ensues as they try to stop the death of Superman as he's a baby. So I'm not going to say this is great or anything. It's super cheesy, kind of like Wonder Woman was. I think it's still a lot of fun. I think I liked it better than the last time I watched it, which was something of a shattering disillusionment, really. Because when I watched this a few years ago, and I hadn't seen Lois and Clark in a long time, and I was like, oh, this is a soap opera, and not a good one, really. And there's a lot of kind of moral platitudes thrown around and stuff like that, and the whole Lois thinks that or that like the reason that Lois can't put two and two together is because she's too in love, and I don't know what that means. We'll have to talk about it because it's really weird. If you look at it too deep, too much, your head will explode. It's just like the time travel, which we'll also talk about. The big reason I picked this episode was because when I was a kid, the novelty of the time travel with this was kind of fun. I thought Tempest was a fun, larger-than-life, ridiculous kind of character, and I really enjoyed that. And also, I picked it because, and this is a phrase my dad still uses to this day because he thought this episode was so much fun when I was a kid, galactically stupid. I love that. I've never forgotten Galactically Stupid. So anyway, we'll go ahead and talk about it. Steve, go ahead and take the floor, buddy. What did you think of this? And did you remember this one?
Yeah, I saw this. I saw the show when I was a kid. I rewatched it back when I was in high school. Didn't care for it then. Didn't care for it when I was a kid either. The only reason I kept watching it is as a kid and into adulthood, I've always had a crush on Terry Hatcher. So there's that. Even like a favorite Lois Lane. This was okay. I don't care for this version of Superman. I don't like Dean Cain in the role, and so I get fixated on little things he does. Like he's always crossing his arms for some reason, and it always comes off as, are you trying to hide the fact that you don't have enough muscle or something? Are you ashamed of the costume? I don't know. He's got really weird mannerisms all the way through. But this was fun. I like the guy that plays H.G. Wells a lot. I think he's not, if not authentic, at least kind of enjoyable and kind of charming. The guy, Tempus is fun as well. He's got a weird Terminator, wishes he was Arnold Schwarzenegger kind of thing going. I love that scene in the gun shop. I think that's hilarious. But at the end of the day, the whole episode didn't make a whole lot of sense, and I get the feeling that it wasn't trying to make a whole lot of sense. It was just trying to keep pushing along the Lois and Clark relationship, which they meander for a really, really long time until they get to that wedding episode, and they call it finally they're getting married this time or something like that.
Yeah. Because that was supposed to be the big joke, and it's like, okay, it's not funny anymore. Like, they're treating it like, well, as soon as we marry them off, nobody's going to watch the show anymore. And I never understood that. Maybe that's true. I don't understand why viewers are like that. I'm like, well, it seems like once they get married, that's when things get interesting. Isn't the reason you want to see that because now we can progress the story? Like,
that's why I started liking it. I liked the dynamic of Lois and Clark as a married couple and her knowing that he's Superman, because everything before that just feels really awkward to me. But yeah, I liked the moment she found out, up until she forgot because of love and time travel. I enjoyed that the most. I think those two all play off of each other really well, and that's kind of what got me into it, is that those two have really good chemistry. Even if they're not Lois and Clark the way I'd like them to be, they're still really fun actors together.
They definitely picked the right people. By the way, I want to mention really quick, folks are asking me in the comments, and I meant to say this at the beginning, that Dan and Manos, of course, are both, I don't think I mentioned this. Manos wasn't able to make it tonight. He has something else going on, and Dan might be with us later on. He had to work later than normal. Well, what did you think of this?
I really liked it. I mean, I haven't, not in like a it was amazing way, but I watched it when I was younger, and that was the last time that I saw any episodes of this show. So it was weird to come back to it when I only had memories of the very long ago, like fuzzy. It was fun. I didn't like it as much as the Wonder Woman pilot. Like, that camp was way better for me, whereas this camp was a little bit too much. I enjoyed it. I wasn't bored, but I don't think I would go watch another episode unless somebody picks one again.
I'm not gonna say I won't, but yeah.
Hint, hint.
Yeah, I mean, like, it's not terrible, but it's I don't think it holds up well. I don't know. There was a couple of moments where, like, Superman was flying, and I was like, "Ooh, that was CG," or like, I don't know. All the dialogue was very giggly, and like, I don't know. I just was laughing a lot of it and kind of having fun with it more than actually being invested in the story. I loved Tempest. He was hilarious. Just the way that he talked the whole time. Every time he spoke, I was laughing. I don't know if that was meant to be, but
I think it was somewhat because Tempest is making fun of the formula and the cheesiness of the show, and that's another reason that I picked this, was that Tempest sees through the preposterousness of the show, and I could almost make the case that you have to, and this is like episode 18 of the second season out of a 4-season show, so we're past the halfway point. I feel like you almost need to get to this episode before you can be 100% sure if the people making it realize just how goofy it is. And then he starts being nauseated by things, and you go, oh, okay, it is a joke.
Yeah, no, for sure. I mean, like, it's obvious that it's meant to be a joke, or, like, it's meant to be cheesy, but I feel like they went a little far with it, at least a little far for my taste.
Yeah, and it didn't feel that far in the mid-'90s, I don't think, although I have a tough time being sure about stuff like that because, again, I grew up with it, so I have somewhat of a nostalgia factor, but also I was a kid in the '90s, so I had kind of a skewed perspective of what people found more serious or whatever. I will tell you that other things that were on around the same time, you certainly could take more seriously. In the same vein, I feel like the first season of The Flash was not like that. In fact, got better when it allowed itself to get to a little bit more of a silly place, silly in a comic book sense of we can let the comic book stuff happen, as opposed to this show, which seems to kind of pile the silliness on. But anyway, well, let's get into some story stuff and that sort of stuff. The big thing for me, of course, is that it's an ending that makes it a non-episode, a non-issue. When Steve mentioned that it's an episode that's trying to further the Lois and Clark relationship and just kind of keep us perpetually in that place, it's almost a quintessential episode in that way, in that not only are they not allowing you have to contrive something so we can't really allow that to go anywhere, but they have to forget things that they learned in this. I thought this would have been a perfect way for her to find out that he was Superman. And I remember thinking this even when I was a kid. But the biggest issue with it is that you have to spend so much time in the episode watching them kind of sort that out and figure out if they can still get along and figure out if they even like each other anymore, and her figuring out, the dual identities. I thought you were two different people, and I got to work that identity thing. And they sort it out. And for this material, in this somewhat cheesy context, I kind of bought it and thought it was okay. I like that she gets reasonable after a while and says, I'm sorry I threw all that at you, but it was, this is a big kind of, shocker for me, and that's how I kind of react to things. The big problem for me when I was a kid was I'm going to have to watch them do all that again, and I did.
Well, yeah, when I was watching it, I was thinking, like, oh, wow, Cap, picked the episode where she finds out, because I don't really remember when or even if she ever finds out, because it's been so long since I watched it.
Oh, yeah, they get married.
But,
yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I don't even remember. I don't even know if I've seen those episodes, but I definitely haven't seen it. Cat Pigs is super cool, and I was really into it, and then we got to the end, and I was like, man, you gotta take it away.
Yeah, and I think going forward, it would have been really interesting to deal with the fact that they end up getting together because they find out that they're destined to be together. And if they play with that a little bit of how much of their relationship is founded on the fact that they have to get together because of that there will be perpetual peace, and how do you take that away even if you don't like the person you're with?
That's right. Yeah.
And I mean, obviously the show was never serious enough to do something like that, but I feel like that still would have been a question in the back of everyone's mind if you kept it that way. It's also, if I remember correctly, this is like a Christmas episode, isn't it? At the very beginning. Because there's something about gifts at the beginning and end. I don't remember if it's just Harry's birthday.
Or what it was. Yeah, I forget.
Yeah, I guess I'd have to watch it in context. I don't remember now. But if it was either a Christmas or a birthday episode, you could have done some other stuff with side characters to further that a little bit more. Because Jimmy and Superman had a fun relationship throughout most of this, even though he didn't know he was Superman. The actors were still really fun together, and it would have been interesting to rope Jimmy into some of the love stuff, and if he didn't understand any of it, and kind of play on the naive '90s trope of the sidekick that doesn't understand anything.
Yeah.
Well, Parcell says that it was Perry White's birthday, just so we know.
Okay.
Well, then I don't know what in the world that thing was at the end of, well, no, this is my card. You're like, well, why did you get a card then? But yeah, Steve, I love your point that it's almost as if it's like an arranged marriage at that point if they know, right? Where it's like we know that we're supposed to get together, and we have to make sure that the future turns out awesome, so we have to get together now, even if Lois hates him for not telling her. I liked all of Clark's reasons for not telling her. And that, I mean, they're somewhat the obvious ones, but I sort of like, and I think that's just because these days we see this done so much in superhero fiction. It's kind of a natural thing to go to when people have secret identities of, if I tell you something bad could happen to you, and of course he's got to bring that up, or he seems really selfish. But I sort of like that he led with, I wanted to have a normal life. At first I did this because I am a human being, and for all intents and purposes, and I care about getting to be a person and Superman. I also love the line, and I think this would work in just about anything Superman, that Superman is not who I am, or Superman is what I do, Clark Kent is what I am. I think that sums up the dual identity for Superman perfectly in most incarnations. I really like that.
And I think it's the first time we got that outside of the comics, because that's something John Byrne was playing with in the 70s and 80s of Clark Kent's the man, Superman's the identity. But as far as the public consciousness goes, from the George Reeves show, the Christopher Reeve movies, before the animated series, we never really got a sense that there was a separation between those two men until this show came out. And Clark was our main focus, and Superman was just something that came up at the end of every episode.
That's true, although I think, and it was subtly done, but I think that there is some of it in the Christopher Reeve movies, especially the first one, and some of this might just be me reading too much into stuff, but a lot of it came out with the acting. Actually, no, I'm thinking more Superman 2, where I always kind of question if like Clark tripping over the rug and falling in the fire was something that he did on purpose, because that's how she finds out in that. It's like, is that something that he does on purpose, or has he made himself more bumbling by pretending all the time? And then there's some interesting identity questions there. Where does Clark begin and Superman ends? And I think so that was there. This came right out and talked about it.
Yeah.
The big thing with the ending, I guess I'm jumping around a little bit, is that the time travel makes no sense at the end. They're playing with pretty much Back to the Future time travel to the point where he even has a flux something rather. It's not a flux capacitor, but it's a flux something else, and that was it was obvious where they were stealing that from. By the way, I should mention also that the time machine that he builds is it's not a straight up replica, but it's clearly homaging the design from the 60s Time Machine, which is one of my favorite science fiction movies of all time. It's really cool. It's kind of similar, and I thought that was kind of neat that they used that. But anyway, the time travel at the end, why is it that going from the past into the present from right before they met would make you not have memories of the past? I
mean, it seemed like they remembered 1866 just fine when they went to 1966.
Yeah.
And H.G. Wells says something about how they're not allowed to remember, but I don't know if he erased their memories or what. Does he have a Men in Black clicker thing?
Well, yeah, but the line I've got to take him at his word with this because of the way it's played. He says, all I have to do is take you just before we met. So his explanation is, we will have never met. That doesn't work. Because you're playing with mostly Back to the Future time travel. You can't, with the same kind of time travel. Now, this is also hokey, but it always was kind of in Back to the Future also, where, you're disappearing. They do that whole disappearing thing, with the guitar.
It was on his hand, too.
Whereas, yeah, it's and why not his clothes? Why just it's just his head and not his clothes? But anyway, you can't have that and then go back to just before you would have left, and there not be two of you. Doesn't make any sense. There would be two of you, because the way Back to the Future works is Marty comes back and there's two of them, but he comes back just before he left. See, according to this, he would just forget everything that happened. Marty shows up at the end of that movie and he watches himself go back in time in the time machine. The reason he gets to progress forward from there is because the old him is in the past and becomes the him that he is now. Now I'm taking this way too seriously. Obviously, they just didn't give it any kind of thought at all. But this. You show back up, okay, so then, what would have happened to them if they showed up, later? Are they outside? Is there a part of the timeline where they're just not in there?
And see, if there isn't two of them at the end of the episode, it doesn't make any sense why there's two of Clark when they're trying to save his baby self.
Yeah, I didn't think of that either. That's totally true. Yeah. Here's the other thing, too. Why is it when they go back in time and they're chasing after Tempus, they keep showing up just after he's been at a place?
Yeah, that's a good question.
Why is time for them progressing forward when they're time traveling? Do they know so they seem to know, according to the time machine. Again, we're not really thinking, but it's fun to talk about because it's really stupid. we're gonna go back in time, and we show up almost right where they were. So you have to plug some kind of time into the time machine. So I guess they show up conveniently 3 minutes after they did the thing in the why? Why not show up just as that's happening? Go wherever
time travel control.
There. Sorry, what, Steve?
It seems like the time travel controls are really arbitrary, though, because when we get a look at the console, the only thing that's there is a year. Not even a location setting, but I guess that just works based on whatever the plot needs to happen.
Yeah, no, now, to be fair, I thought. Oh wait, no, that doesn't work because it's small. I was gonna say I thought the location was just wherever they were in Lowe's
Yeah,
lab.
Yeah, they go from Metropolis to Smallville.
Yeah, yeah. So how do they even know what part of it? Luckily, it's a small town. I just love it. I'm watching this grin on Lo's face. She's like, "Yeah, Cap, why are you even talking about this? What? I clearly they didn't think about it. This is not okay." Another big criticism I got to give this for the whole series is, and this is of course a later thing. This is not this episode's fault, but this episode, as far as I can tell, completely nullifies season 4. Makes no sense because a lot of season 4 is questioning whether or not Lois and Clark can have children together. And we know, according to this episode, that in the future there are descendants.
But they don't know that, so they just retread the whole thing, and I think it makes the whole season a lot worse for it, and this episode worse for it.
Well, that's true, because and also, at some point later on, of course, Wells and Tempus come back 2 or 3 times.
Yeah, and they remember him, don't they?
I can't remember if they remember him or if he has to remind them who he is, but the thing
Okay, see, I wasn't sure because I remember watching episodes that had H.G. Wells in it, but I didn't remember this episode, so I wasn't sure if I was like just not remembering the episode, but I'd seen it. So I must have seen other episodes then because I remember seeing him and stuff.
Yeah, there's more. There's an episode where they almost get married, and he's there. I think there's an episode where maybe the episode where they actually get married, he's there. I forget. But I think maybe he even I forget. There's more memory wiping somewhere. I think it's been a while. Anyway, but Wells is kind of a jerk face if he doesn't tell them that. Oh no, you guys can have kids. You know, unless the idea is that things would unfold differently. The other thing too is if he's that concerned about the future, he shouldn't be doing things like leaving Tempus in the past.
Especially just to prove his own points. The whole thing is no one believes him that time travel works. So let's go back in time to a point that could be potentially very dangerous for the fate of the future, just to prove that I'm right about something.
Yeah, I mean it's goofy, and the way they get away with it, of course, is just nothing happens because this is a cheesy TV show or whatever happens when we want it to happen. I thought some of the stuff with his parents was kind of touching. I think some of that was obviously going a little too far. I thought it was kind of odd that Clark was incapable of getting past the fact that he's with his parents earlier on. Like a little quicker than he does because he just keeps saying things that make it really clear that they're gonna raise him. And I'm just after a while, I'm just like, yeah, it's okay. Your parents are in the past, okay? Yeah, this would be somewhat shocking, but you're Superman. You've dealt with weirder things than this, and the history, the history's in the balance. The future, your present is in the balance. So.
And his parents aren't dead in this continuity, so there's no reason why he would miss them as much as he does when he gets back there.
Well, I don't think it's that he misses them so much as just it's cool to, see them when or just it's strange in his head getting to see them before they were parents. I mean, and that was one touching thing I thought was you guys are going to make great parents. I like that whole thing.
Yeah, I like that. I guess the way Dean Cain plays it is it's almost like he's awestruck to see his mom and dad. And I feel like if you're a person that can just zip over and see your parents any time of day with super speed, you wouldn't have that reaction necessarily.
Well, yeah.
I just thought that his parents were dead based on this episode. That was the vibe that I got because I didn't know any of the other continuity of this show.
Because his mom makes his costume for him, I think. So I think she's alive in this.
Oh no, they both are. They're in most episodes actually. They keep contriving reasons to put them in all the time. Yeah, his dad never dies, because I hadn't seen this in a while, so I forgot that we actually see them in the past. Because when we see those actors playing their own ancestors early on, I was like, oh yes, of course we got to get them in there someplace because they're in almost every episode. They're always. I was kind of expecting to see Perry White somewhere too. Okay, what are the odds that you walk in a saloon in a tiny, tiny town in Kansas and you just happen to find Jesse James? And that he just happens to be the person that you built your whole life's work on? And also, why is Tempus so into crime and stuff and so obsessed with the idea of creating disorder? And I mean, I love the idea of I'm just bored, but he's like he's like patterned his whole life off of Jesse James. And I also really like the idea, by the way, that in that that in that future you wouldn't know how any technology works. That was kind of neat. There was a little bit of potentially interesting social commentary in the notion of you need challenge or there is no progress. That was kind of cool. Like that future where Superman's ideal is taken to the extreme might actually be sort of scary, or at the very least just not any fun. I kind of liked that, but I didn't get. But wouldn't, Steve, that whole society be in complete disarray if everyone was like this guy?
Yeah, unless you do the dystopian, you have to brainwash everyone to make a perfect piece. Because Legion of Superheroes does this a little bit, where the future is so peaceful and crime is so rare that people get restless and things get stuck in turmoil. And Superman's got this in his Kryptonian history a lot. Like, there's lots of versions where Krypton falls because they refuse to adapt. Even Man of Steel did that a little bit. So it feels like the future has to be in like some kind of flux and everything is going to break down, but I don't think the show ever tackles that, especially because of how weird and bubbly H.G. Wells is. Like, it seems like the idea of critical thought doesn't even occur to that guy.
No, not at all.
Like, why did he randomly pick that guy? Like, you gotta imagine that there's better people in the future to bring back with you.
And he has that, and Tempus has that great line where he says, "I can't believe you wrote all those books."
Yeah. Well, and I mean, I love how Tempest just calls everybody out. He's like, "You're stupid," and "You're stupid." I mean, the whole thing seems to be Tempest is not a good actor. Like, he's so hammy and over the top, and clearly a mustache twirling villain. I would have kind of liked to have known some of his backstory, because it could have been really cool dealing with how he got that way. But the idea that he could fool H.G. Wells is hilarious. And then some of his line delivery is great. I think this guy's pretty cool, and I think he gets how hammy the show is. So he, like, did he annoy you guys? I thought he was fantastic. I think he's hilarious. And one of my favorite lines from him, besides "galactically stupid," is in that same speech where he says, "The big thing everybody asked was, how stupid was she?"
There were some good lines in this all over the place. Like, Tempest had a lot of good ones, but I also loved Clark's line when he said, "You haven't said a word since 1866."
That's a great line. Yeah, I don't know. It's fun. I don't know. I got kind of warm and fuzzy watching this again. That was really fun. But then I was also like, oh no, my co-hosts are gonna hate me for putting them through this. There was a little bit of that. Let's go to I keep wanting to say let's go to the phones. Oh, before we go to the comments, I want to say one more thing, and that is, now, this is somewhat vague. It might not be a big deal, but there's a line that's like, if something happens to Clark's ancestors, what happens to Superman? And I didn't like that we kept calling them ancestors, because they're not. Like,
yeah,
you know, he's adopted. And I got this sense that Lois, I kept feeling like Lois didn't know he was adopted, but I think she does. But I can't remember from earlier.
It's been a long time since I've seen the pilot, but does this Superman do the thing in the first episode like Christopher Reeve, where he just gives an interview about his whole history?
I can't remember if he does that or not. I think he does. And I think they do that kind of thing where it's still kind of with Lois. And
okay, because then I guess she would know, but I didn't get any sense like she knew anything about Krypton aside from Kryptonite.
Yeah. Anyway, let's go to the phones. Let's see, Red Letter Antilles. Cap, hey, it's okay. I'm gonna say a thing I wouldn't usually say on this. Hey, Cap, it's not as bad as Smallville's whole Jarrell boning Lana's grandmother or whatever. Yours probably. No, it's not.
Yeah.
No, it's not. This puts that. Yeah. Smallville puts things into perspective sometimes. Well, there's a lot of people mentioning Smallville, so we'll talk about that. It's kind of interesting. Bamboo. Hey, Cat Grant on Smallville was annoying too. Weird, huh? Yeah. Yep. Yes, she was. Johnny Torch, kind of tough to watch this as a kid when it seemed like all they were interested in was when and if Lois and Clark were going to get it on. Well, that's fair. I mean, yeah, when you're a kid, you're like, I want to see Superman, fight some supervillains. But at least it's not like some of that 70s TV where we don't let any supervillains actually be in the show.
Yeah.
We could have had more, and they made up some lame, really, really lame ones. But they also brought in, some actual Superman villains.
They had Lex Luthor there for a while. I really liked the actor for the first season that he was in.
Oh, yeah, he's great. Well, he's there for the first couple seasons. Here.
Okay. I know they recast him later at one point, though.
What? Sorry, what's that?
I know they recast Lex at one point during the series.
No,
Like Jimmy.
Did they? No, John Shea was Lex all the way through, I thought.
Let me check, actually, because I'm curious. I know they did it to Jimmy, and the new guy reminds me quite a bit of the kid from the Highlander series.
Oh, yeah, the first Jimmy was only there for about 12 episodes. And he's, interestingly, if memory serves, well, I forget. No, I think the second... I'm trying to remember. I think, okay, one of those, maybe it was the first Jimmy, I forget, was believe it or not, the grown-up version of the kid from Child's Play in Child's Play 3.
Oh, that's cool.
I kept feeling like I was watching an episode, or a later episode of Sailor Moon with all the talk about, like, time travel and the fact that they were going to end up together. I was like, oh, it's just like Sailor Moon and Tuxedo Mask. They just, like, don't really address the fact that everyone knows that they're going to get together. And it's, like, a big deal if they don't.
William Parcell wants to know, did the sexual innuendo in this episode bother anyone else? Was there innuendo so much as just, like, was there a lot of actual innuendo, or was it just so thinly veiled that I didn't think of it as innuendo?
I didn't notice.
Yeah, it just seemed like they were talking about sex to me. Didn't know that was an innuendo, but...
Ian Beyond was asking kind of a question similar to what I said a minute ago. Do they all know that the descendants are from... do they all know the descendants are from Lois and Clark? Clark and one of those Phantom Zone women could have had a thing. Well, that's true. Maybe they wouldn't know that. Yeah, but I mean, they kind of made it clear the idea was supposed to be that Lois and Clark get married, and then everybody finds out later on that he's Superman, and they've had children. But that's true. I mean, could be something else. Clearly, they haven't thought it through, because later on, they forget that this happened, I think. Mind the Gap from Superman Homepage podcast that was talked about another season, having Superman and Lois having a child, but the show was canceled. Well, yes, I mean they get that child in the bassinet at the end of season 4, and they had no plan for it. They wrote themselves into a corner, and then this cliffhanger happens. And they thought when they did it they were getting another season. They actually made that having no idea they were getting canceled. What else? Ian Beyond, I feel that Cap and friends are putting too much thought into the time travel mechanics. Yes,
Probably so.
Yes, we are. No, we are. But it's kind of fun to talk about. Yeah. No. Admittedly, I admitted to it. It's my show though, so I'm going to do it anyway.
Time travel rarely makes sense anyway.
Yeah.
No, that's true. But this is a thing where but you can still make it consistent. I mean, all you got to you have a conceit. You're consistent with your conceit, and this is a thing where they get to the end and for no reason at all. I mean. It makes as much sense and is used for the exact same effect as the magic kiss at the end of Superman 2. It's the same, it's the same thing.
Yeah,
it's exactly the same thing happens. I mean, frankly, I think giving Superman a random superpower you didn't know he had makes more sense than this. Also, would somebody explain to me why the baby isn't looking hurt at all by kryptonite, except for the fact that they had a baby, so or actually, he looked like a toddler they were pretending was a baby.
Yeah, that's a good question.
But it's like, he's just laying there, it's like, okay, won't we lie down? And the baby's just like, well, it's glowing.
And at one point, did he have, like, a rock in his hand? Like,
yeah.
Didn't that hurt him? And he was just like, yay, it's a toy.
The show's not going to be this violent or do anything we're actually going to see a kid, get hurt at all. But, like, obviously what Tempus would have done was he puts kryptonite in the thing and then he, like, shoots Superman or something. I mean, like, that's what you do. You don't kill Superman by putting kryptonite on him. That's what you do when you're a moron in Smallville and you do the whole 60s Batman cliffhanger thing, right, where you put kryptonite on him so that he can't chase you, and then you go away and just hope that nothing happens while you're not watching. That's not how you kill Superman, unless you're shooting him with, like, rays of it, or you're bombarding him in a room or something. You still don't walk away. You watch. But no, what you do is you put kryptonite all over him, and then, then you do something that would kill a person. Whatever it was.
It's actually not that difficult to kill Superman, but everyone seems to make it that way.
Yes, they do.
Think of children on this show. goodness.
Let's see here. Just looking to see if there's more cool. Actually, surprisingly, more comments about this show than I would have expected. Oh yeah, everybody was mentioning birthday for Perry White. Hey folks, thanks for doing the reading.
Oh, it looks like you were right. They didn't recast Lex, but there was an episode with like a Lex Jr. and a body double.
Yes.
Okay, that's what I was remembering.
That was a different thing, though. Yeah, John Shea was there for quite a while, and he was there almost from the very beginning. I think like second or third episode they introduced him.
Yeah, I remember really liking him, but it's been a long time since I've seen it.
Oh, I love him. Yeah, I like him a lot. And I hate this. He was actually at Metropolis this year, and I didn't get a chance. I was there, but I didn't end up talking to him.
Oh, okay.
I don't know why I did that. William Parcell. So did anyone else raise an eyebrow when Tempest said that the future people are scientifically inept and hence unable to run the time machine? Well, as I said, I thought that was kind of an interesting idea, that they just kind of let the society run itself and everybody just kind of sits around and has perfect society and it kind of just runs itself. The problem with that, of course, is that means that they don't understand Superman's values and that society is kind of degenerated, and I think that's actually a fascinating idea that they're not playing with. And I don't know if they're doing that on purpose, but I think it's kind of cool.
Yeah, that would be interesting. There are no Elseworlds with like a future of Superman and what that example would be like, but that'd be a good thing to run with.
William Parcell also says the actor who played Clark Kent, Superman, of course, that's Dean Cain, didn't even bother to make them different from one another to make the secret identity believable. Yeah, and that's a thing that a lot of people always complain about with this show. I always thought that was really funny, that they're just exactly the same. I always thought it was kind of an interesting idea, the notion that, and I don't know if it was on purpose or not, you could just say, well, it's bad acting, but I mean, it makes Lois stupider. Because people acting exactly.
Galactically stupider.
But I always liked the idea. How stupid was? But I always liked the idea that they kind of act the same because they are the same. But then you could take some acting classes or something. All right, well, folks, we've got a Fantastic Four spoilercast to do after a while, so let's go ahead and we've belabored this quite a while, so let's go ahead and go on now to the open forum for the next 15 minutes or so. For the remainder of the hour, we're going to answer your questions. So I ask us anything you want to about comics, comic stuff, superhero stuff, comics to screen, that sort of thing, and try to throw in some cool ones in there for Curious Lo, because she doesn't know this stuff as well as the rest of us. We're trying to elevate her knowledge and getting her.
I'm getting there. I have about 4 comics that I'm rating each week.
Well, I'm so glad that you're still sticking with us and doing this, despite the fact that we're talking about stuff that you don't even know what we're talking about half the time. And anyway, we sure appreciate it. And obviously, you're contributing quite a bit when we show you a thing, and then you get to.
It's okay. I like it. I mean, like, I'm a big movie fan. I'm a big TV fan. So hopefully that's my contribution.
Well, I'm glad you guys didn't hate this.
I didn't hate it. I didn't love it.
Yeah, it's a thing that exists.
Hey, I didn't love it either. It was a part of my childhood. Galactically Stupid is a thing my dad still says on a regular basis. And that's why I picked it. So anyway, by the way, Lo, don't tell us yet, but it is your turn to pick. Did you come up with something?
I did, yes.
Good, okay.
It's in the same vein of things that people might not like, but it's from my childhood. So.
Okay. When you said same vein, I thought, do you mean Wonder Woman and Lois and Clark? Is that cheese?
No.
Well, don't tell us yet. We'll find out later on. Okay. And we're going to go ahead and start answering some questions from our viewers. Remember, if you've never done this before, you want to go to the blue chat in the description, and that is where we take questions. Don't do it in the video comments because I'm not anywhere near there. They don't show up half the time, so that's not going to be all that helpful. Once again, the Fantastic Four spoilercast is happening just after this. We're going to take a 10-minute break right after this, 9 o'clock my time, 9 Central. Then we're going to come back in 10 minutes after that, about 9:10, 9:15 or so Central Time, and we're going to talk about the Fantastic Four reboot and do a spoiler cast and talk about all that stuff, and that's going to be really interesting. Hopefully Dan manages to make it by then. Once again, Manos isn't going to make it with us tonight, and the link to that, I already have the live show for that on Geekvolution, so you can go there. You should be able to find it. It's on my Facebook, it's on my Twitter, and I'm also going to take the link and put it in the blue chat right this very moment, so you should be able to go there and get ready for that. Remember, it's going to be a different It's going to be a different live show. I just put it there. You'll see a link with nothing else around it. That's what that is. Will be a different live show. We're not going to keep this one going. We want people tomorrow to be able to look at whichever one of these they want to. And we don't want all the people that want to watch the FF Spoilercast have to skip past an hour of us talking about this. So that's what's going on there. Let's start answering things. First of all, Mad Titan, Cap, you should get Brown Coat Eric on Primetime Crisis. Yeah, I know. I keep telling him that. I keep wanting him to come on and chat with us, but the problem with him being here is that when he does, he will refuse to keep watching Arrow because he does not like that show anymore and doesn't want to watch it anymore, and he'll have to listen to us complain about it and then be like, "Oh my god!" So that might be a thing. Mind the Gap. Should the DC movie universe cast another Green Arrow and Black Canary closer to the comics? What do you think, Steve? Should we leave those characters alone, or should we include them somehow?
I think we should include them. It seems like the movies are the only place you can get your fix of certain characters these days, like Green Arrow, because he hasn't been Green Arrow in the comics or on TV in a really long time, and the last time I saw him as being decently Oliver Queen was Justice League Unlimited. So if Zack Snyder wants to make a version on screen that is absolute left-wing, goatee-wearing Green Arrow with Black Canary, I'm all for that.
I'm with you. I mean, I think you can do very different characterizations of those. I feel like what they've done, and maybe we talked about this, that what they've done on TV has been kind of a reimagining anyway. I also feel like the TV universe is a very different thing and kind of less stylistic, or at least differently stylistic than what they're doing with the movies. So you can create characters that would fit better in that world, and maybe, I hate to use the word dark, but slightly darker versions, not in that they're like a lot more broody and stuff, but just more adult in a way, if that makes any sense at all. Maybe all I'm saying is more sophisticated. Maybe that's what I'm saying.
Yeah, because there is definitely a difference between mature and adult, and Arrow seems to be more adult and less mature at times.
Yeah. Carl Maxey, Captain Logan, I appreciate. Lo, you didn't want to weigh in on that, did you?
Nah.
Captain Logan, I just don't want you to feel left out. You're part of the
I'm good. I'll talk when I know what you guys are talking about.
Lo, you're part of the
comic one day.
You're part of the Crisis team now. I'm gonna.
I know.
Your membership card in the mail. Captain Logan, I appreciate it when Batman actually tries to find a middle ground with the Joker in the beginning of Killing Joke. I like that a lot too. Can you see other heroes try and do this with their arch enemies, like Reed and Doom, Superman and Lex, and Spider-Man and Green Goblin? And how would that turn out? This was a message. This is a question he asked last week that we didn't get to. I don't think we actually talked about that. So there we go. Steve, what do you think? I got noodled that a little bit.
I think a lot of characters do actually do that. Now, I can't speak to Spider-Man.
Try that already, right?
Yeah, I mean, I can't speak to Spider-Man, but characters, like, for example, Superman trying to reason with Lex Luthor. Every time I see a Superman origin story, there's always a scene at the very end where Superman flies to Lex Luthor's office and tries to talk with him. It's in almost everything. And Superman's an extremely reasonable guy. He does that all the time. Wonder Woman does that all the time. Green Lantern did it with Sinestro all the time because Sinestro was his teacher. So I think naturally heroes have a tendency to try and reason with the villain because it seems like the best villains, the villains that make the arch nemesis, are ones that have a point and are the flip side of that character. So there's always a natural curiosity that you can only explore when those two characters have a conversation.
Yeah, and also the Joker's a really unique character, of course, in that you don't really know who he was before that, and so he's not the same kind of sympathetic. In that you don't tend to reason with him because you don't think you can. You know, like he's just a completely, seems to be completely out to lunch, or at least just too stubborn to allow himself to change. So you don't really expect that you can do that. Also, with Spider-Man and Green Goblin, isn't it usually something along the lines of you used to make sense, now you're a crazed lunatic. This isn't you. Snap out of it. Like, isn't that what he usually does with Green Goblin?
That's what it seems like from what I've seen.
Yeah, same.
So there's a little bit of reasoning there. So even when you have a character that is like a complete demented psychopath, a lot of the times there's something that led them to that, of course, and there's an attempt to reason with them, especially when it's a character that like you thought you knew and they just turned like this in the first place, and you're like, this isn't you, snap out of it.
Yeah, like Batman and Harvey Dent being his best friend and constantly doing stories where those two guys are trying to work with each other.
Mind the Gap wants to know if we're going to cover Vixen on Primetime Crisis. Did that ever happen?
Yeah, it got a trailer. I'm not sure when it's coming out, but it is getting made.
We probably will. I mean, we covered the lead up to the Gods and Monsters thing movie. I shouldn't say thing, movie. I like that. It's graduated from thing to movie because I liked it.
Yeah. It's probably only going to be like another 5-minute shorts anyway.
I'm just making up terminology. I'm in a weird mood. Superior Spider-Ham! Yeah, Superior Spider-Ham. Bacon version is superior. Superior Spider-Ham, if Marvel does get Fantastic Four rights back, would you recast or keep the same cast? Well, to be realistic, there's no way that if Marvel got it back, they would cast it the same. This is not going to happen. They wouldn't want that failure to tarnish it. I feel like I can say failure now. It only made $22 million opening weekend. I don't see how it's going to make its money back, especially with all the bad reviews. It's certainly not going to have anything like as good of a weekend next weekend. I don't think Marvel would do that. They weren't even willing to consider it with Andrew Garfield, and that was before he had issues with Sony, and that was a franchise that was making money and that some people were liking. So I just don't see it. Having said that, would it be a good, would you want to see it? Would it be a good idea? We're going to talk about this with the spoiler cast. I like some things tonally about that movie, regardless of the script and stuff. And I think that they could do a similar thing, maybe kind of, sort of, in that universe. I wouldn't expect it. That universe is kind of lighter, brighter looking generally, at least outside of the street level stuff. So I don't know that it would be appropriate to do that. I think that they were all cast really well, and that you can take the exact same actors and put them in a Marvel Studios caliber film and have a really good movie potentially. That's what I think. What do you think, Steve?
Well, all four of them are good actors.
Yeah,
sorry,
go
ahead, Steve.
No, you're right, Lo. That's exactly what I was going to say, is that they're all great actors. I love them in everything. Kate Mara is a fantastic Sue Storm. I love Miles Teller in Whiplash. He didn't get a lot to do here. And the guy that plays Dr. Doom, I loved his voice, even if Doom himself was awful. So Marvel will, like you said, Cap, not use the same cast, but I could very easily see these same actors pulling off comic book Fantastic Four, just given the right script.
When Parcell, if Marvel, I guess this is all stuff we should talk about later, and we probably will, but maybe some of you people need to go to bed early. If Marvel got back the FF, do you think they would even bother making a film? Oh yes, definitely. I do. I think they want it. I think that they would probably bring back the comics and stuff in a big way. I think that if they can get the rights back, the movies are their ticket to making an FF book sell. Because a lot of the reason, besides the fact that they don't want to advertise for Fox's movie, not that it would have helped if they had, is that they weren't selling. They didn't have the numbers. Fantastic Four hasn't sold a long time. In a long time, I don't think ever since the stuff that what's his name? With help me out, Steve. The guy that was doing all the stuff with Black Bolt and killed off Human Torch for a second, and Hickman. Thank you. Even then, I don't think it sold that well. But some people were reading that. So yeah, they would definitely make a movie because I think that they could make it a popular property in a big way, like they did with Guardians. The problem, of course, is that with this, there's a lot of baggage now, at this point.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't think they'd hesitate. I think they'd make one right away. They try to get that bad taste out of people's mouth. I mean, it's got such a legacy in the comics with Marvel. It's the first family. I think they'd want it. I think it'd be weird to incorporate it so far after the fact, but I think they would try.
I don't even know the source material, and I'm interested to see. I can see where this would be a really interesting and compelling story. Just for some reason, Fox is incapable of doing it.
I would love if, and this would never happen, but I would love if Marvel got the rights back and we either did a Netflix or an ABC TV show, The Fantastic Four, that was just them hopping around and exploring things. Make it like Star Trek with the Fantastic Four.
That's great. It needs to be. Make it all about exploration. Make it put some awe and some wonder in it.
Yeah, exactly. Make it like DS9. I just got to the second season of that show and I really loved it. Make it exactly like DS9.
Yes. I was going to say make it some kind of a cross between TOS and Lost in Space.
Lost in Space.
Yeah, and I mean, obviously tell better stories than that. But when I say Lost in Space, this sense of awe and wonder, and you're constantly, traveling and finding. I mean, yeah, it'd be super cool. Also, isn't it weird all the stuff that is borrowed from Fantastic Four that has been more successful, or even stuff that hasn't. But I mean, you look at The Incredibles. People kept mentioning that on how we felt about that Vince and I did on that movie, and you got a movie that is essentially sort of kind of how you could make Fantastic Four work. It's a thing about a family, and they've got the superpowers. How do they integrate into society? That's what Fantastic Four is about in the first place. So you do that. But I'm even thinking about things. This is not good or anything. But I'm thinking about things like No Ordinary Family. It's so weird to borrow a lot from Fantastic Four. And isn't that weird? Because it was still Michael Chiklis, who had the same powers he does as the Thing. He just wasn't a rock creature. But you make it. I love the idea of making a television series, and I'm going to go farther. I think you should do it off of Netflix because you wouldn't want it to be a street level thing. Now they might do some stuff that's not street level eventually, but I think you'd want to do it on on their network, and because you make it a weekly family show. I mean, you make it a thing families are supposed to sit down and watch together.
Yeah, that makes sense. The only reason I say Netflix is because not the grittiness, but just they would give them probably a bigger budget.
Yep, you're right about that. Well, and we've seen that hurt Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. in places before, so yeah.
Yeah, I don't know if you could do the Thing week to week on television, but I would love to see them try.
Damaged My Forehead! I wish Damaged My Forehead would ask more questions, because I just love saying his name, Damaged My Forehead. You ready? Damaged My Forehead. Hey, Cap, what are your thoughts on Frank Miller's recent work? I just read his Daredevil origin and loved it. Feels completely different from his recent schlock, like Holy Terror. He did a recent Daredevil thing?
No, I think he's just talking about Born Again.
Oh, his early? Because he said he's. Oh, I see what you're saying.
Oh, is he saying he's saying in reference to the stuff he's doing now compared to what he used to do?
Oh, I got it. Yeah. Well, and we've talked about this a million times. His writing now is not very good. He lost it someplace, it seems, and hasn't really been able to make anything real thought provoking that wasn't just kind of trying to be shocking. And he also has written a lot of stuff in the last few years that just doesn't make a lot of sense. But anyway, he's got somebody else helping him out with what was it, Azzarello?
Azzarello and him are doing the new Batman book.
The Dark Knight. Third thing, which nobody asked for, but we'll see if it's any good. So yeah. Let's answer one or two more before we take a break and come back with what am I talking about? I'm just spewing words right now. With our new live show where we'll talk about Fantastic Four. Moosh Media question: favorite dialogue writer? Oh, that's a great question. Wow, that's good stuff. I gotta think about it. You have an idea right away, Steve, and I'm sure we're talking comics. Oh boy, that's tough.
Dialogue. I absolutely love the way Grant Morrison writes dialogue. I love the way Remender does it. And I'm growing to really love how what's his name? Marshall Rogers. Not Marshall Rogers. God, what is his name? He just did Dark Knight, Dark City. What is his name? I can't even think of it now. It's not Jim Starlin. It's
Jim Starlin's not bad.
No, Jim Starlin's good too. Peter Milligan. There we go. Peter Milligan. That's the guy.
Yeah,
he's fantastic.
Yeah, I'm having a hard time thinking of people's names tonight. The guy who was doing a Green Lantern Corps for a while, did some Red Lanterns. I like his dialogue a lot. Let me think. Who else? Stuff's just not coming. I bring up Eric Burnham all the time, but I think he's a good, especially for comedy dialogue writer.
Brian K. Vaughan. Brian K. Vaughan's fantastic as well.
Oh, yeah, of course. Yeah, you're absolutely right.
Jamie Delano. Jamie Delano is also, he's just poetic.
Obviously, Jason Aaron's dialogue's really good.
Yeah, he is too.
Yeah, we could go on and on, but my head's not in a place of thinking of names today. Let's see here.
I've read almost nothing, but of what I've read so far and what I'm reading at the moment, I don't know her name, but the girl who writes Gotham Academy.
Oh yeah, she's great too.
Okay.
That's my favorite series that I'm reading right now.
Yeah.
I'm only reading like 10 series, but...
Speaking of female writers, though, Kelly Sue DeConnick and Gail Simone write amazing dialogue.
Yeah.
And Kevin Smith also. I'm not a fan of his work usually, but he always does have good dialogue.
Yeah, he's a good dialogue writer. Yeah, and Bendis too, to a degree, but he can be overwritten. But I think they both have that where they write really good dialogue, but they tend to really kind of run away with themselves.
Yeah.
Oh, and obviously Whedon.
Yes, of course.
Yeah. I'm thinking of people that I don't think about as comic writers as much anymore because they do other things.
Yeah.
But, yeah.
Steve Englehart's good with dialogue.
Is he?
Yeah, he's awful at romances, but dialogue-wise, he's really good. Neil Gaiman's fantastic.
Oh yeah, of course. Yeah.
Trying to think of other people. Jeff Loeb's not a good writer, but every now and then he gives you an exchange between Batman and Catwoman that's just really, really well done.
You might not agree with this, Steve. I think for the most part, Paul Dini writes really good dialogue.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. I'm not a fan of the way he writes dialogue in his Detective Comics run at all.
This is just on my mind. This has come up quite a bit lately. I also think Bob Gale's a really good dialogue writer.
Oh yeah, yeah.
And he writes comics. We always think of him, of course, as a movie writer first, and he is, but he writes comics. And importantly, he's doing the Back to the Future prequel, which is really exciting.
Yes, he is. I can't wait to read that. Matt
Wagner
does great dialogue.
I feel like we're out of time, so, well, I don't feel like it. That's not an opinion. I'm looking at the clock, and we're out of time. So, we're going to go ahead and take a break. We're going to come back for the Fantastic Four spoilercast. I'm sure a lot of folks are hanging out waiting for us to do that. So we'll be back with you in just a few minutes. We're going to take a little bit of a breather here. And check the link. I'll put it in the blue chat one more time. Oh, JMS. Somebody mentioned JMS. Yes, of course.
Oh, yeah. He's great.
And would this be a good time for me to reveal my pick?
Yes, thank you for reminding me. Go right ahead. So Lo is going to pick our retro review for next week, or our discussion. And what are we going to be talking about next time, Lo?
So, being that I am fairly new to comics, and my my intro to comics was definitely a little bit more backwards, I think, than some of your guys's, where I started watching superhero stuff and then started reading comics. Figured I would go back to the first superhero thing that I ever watched and really remember watching as a kid. So it's from the 90s, and also it's Disney because I'm me and I love Disney. So we are going to watch season 1, episode 52 of Darkwing Duck.
Yes, we made a lot of episodes for cartoons back then. Yeah.
It's called Time and Punishment. So yeah, it's only a 20-minute episode, but I like it. I feel like it's a good one to kind of compare to like just comic books and superheroes in general. It does a lot of kind of fun commentary on that. So yeah.
I love Darkwing Duck.
I'm loving this retro series because we're going back to a bunch of stuff that I've either never seen or haven't seen in a really long time. I probably haven't seen Darkwing Duck in 15 years.
They don't rerun it. They don't rerun it. I don't think there's any new DVD collections. I really wish they'd put out like a complete set because I love that show.
Yeah,
you have to be sneaky to find it, and the copies on YouTube are terrible.
Well, that's going to be really cool. Hopefully we can all find it, and we will. So we'll do that next time. So Time and Punishment, Darkwing Duck. Next time, everybody, thanks as always for watching. Sure appreciate it. We will see you again very shortly. Stick around for what I'm sure a lot of you are thinking of as the main event tonight, and we're going to see if we can pull our heads together and keep our brains from oozing out of our eyeballs while we talk about the fantastic. I don't want to make any assumptions about anybody's opinions or anything, but as we attempt to discuss intelligently the Fantastic Four reboot, we'll do that in a few minutes. Hopefully, Dan will be able to join us, but if not, it'll be just 3 of us again, and we will do our level best. It'll be an hour, maybe a little bit longer than that. We're going to go till we're done saying what we have to say about it. And in the meantime, I'm Captain Logan, and again, we're all coming back again here in a few minutes, but this was the Curious Lo.
Bye, guys.
And beware the Steve Baxi.
See you, everyone.
Everybody, thanks a lot for being here. We'll see you in just a little bit.